So if you've decided that you want to pursue backyard composting, and that's not your only option, there are other ways you can do it, like drop-off composting. But if you're interested in pursuing backyard composting, then you have some decisions to make about how you want to do it. There are 6 steps to that process of backyard composting, starting with choosing your system, choosing a site or siting your container, the materials you add to it, picking the right materials, building your pile, letting it cook down or compost, and then harvesting from it, using it in the garden. So starting with what container or system you want to use. You have a few basic categories as options. One example is our soil saver over there. This is a very basic system. It is just a plastic box. It does not have even a floor in it, in fact, but you can either put it on something like a piece of plywood, or you can just let it rest right on the ground. It is easy to open, but does lock down. So one of its features is that it secures from pests, and it is very affordable. On the downside, you will need to turn the material by hand, so it's a little bit more labor intensive, but durable, simple, functional. If you're interested in getting a little bit more creative, you can build your own composting system. And what we would recommend is a 2 or 3 bin system, and what you see here is an example of a 3 bin system made from pallets. You can also make these from virtually anything, including cinder blocks or hardware cloth, chicken wire type stuff, and stakes. These are obviously harder to secure, but it certainly can be done, as you see here on the bay that we add to. But often the benefit of these is that it's a rotational system, so that you're adding to one bay and you're flipping it into the next bay when it's ready. The next option you would have would be some sort of a tumbler system. And a tumbler system is different than a soil saver in that it is not directly on the ground. So critters from the ground can't get directly into it, but you do not need to turn it by hand. You just need to crank it, and it does the work of adding the air and giving the critters what they need in terms of mixing the material. Finally, you have a system like what we have up here called a green cone, and that is a digester, not a composter. And there are some fundamental differences we'll get into more, but it impacts the kind of materials you can use in it, and it has a lot of implications for siting. So we'll talk about the mostly limitations around under what circumstances in terms of available siting you can use a green cone. And in fact, we might as well jump into that now, since siting is topic number 2 in planning your backyard composting. So, what you need for a green cone is well-draining soil. So it really needs to be sandy or gravelly, and you can create that yourself if you're willing to do the extra work. Otherwise, you just need to have that in the area that you choose to dig your hole for it. It also really needs direct sunlight. It needs to be aided with the heat provided by being in the sun. And so if you only can find a shady spot, that is not going to be a good fit for you, and we'd recommend a composter instead. As far as siting a composter, you are going to want to think about how to secure it. You're going to want to think about proximity and convenience. The closer to be more convenient for you, especially in the winter, if you're going to have to shovel your way out there. But also keep in mind that there will be some extra fly activity around it, so you're not going to want it right up against your house. It also can attract some critters, although if you do it well, that's less of a concern, particularly if you make it inaccessible, like as the soil saver does with the clamp down lids. Always good if you can get it some extra solar by putting it in the sun as well. One more oft overlooked consideration when it comes to siting your compost container or even your digester, your green cone, is tree roots. There really is a concentration of nutrients that will be emanating from your composter. And unless your composter is off the ground or you have set on something, tree roots will have access to those nutrients and they will seek them out. They will actually grow from the ground, your composter, and add root mass, especially if you're not turning it regularly. So we would suggest Not siting your compost bins exactly where you see these, next to the woods. Avoid trees and shrubs when siting.